What if Kenjaku stole Gojo's body? Gojo's body was already treated like a weapon after his death. In canon, Yuta copied Kenjaku's body swapping technique and took Gojo's corpse for 5 minutes. But what if Yuta never got there first? What if Kenjaku intercepted Gojo's corpse during the chaos and became the thing he had spent 1,000 years avoiding? Well, I found 3 ways this story could continue. In the first theory, Kenjaku steals Gojo's body, but the Six Eyes reject him almost immediately. This version starts in Shoko's medical room. Gojo's corpse is being prepared. Yuta is barely alive. Rika is screaming and everyone is moving with no room for hesitation. Then the stitches appear before anyone understands what's happening. Kenjaku's severed brain, preserved through a final binding vow after Yuta's ambush, slips into the one body nobody should ever be allowed to touch. For a few seconds, the room dies. Shoko sees Gojo sit up. Then she sees the forehead open. That alone breaks something in her. She already lost Geto's body once. Now she watches Gojo's body get taken the same way. Utahime, Ichiji, and Ui would be thrown into panic. Yuta's backup plan is gone. Rika lashes out, but Kenjaku uses infinity before the room can react. He laughs because for the first time in his entire life, the thing that always blocks his plans is sitting between his own eyes. Then the rejection begins. The Six Eyes aren't a mere tool or an organ. They're tied to fate, Tengen, and the balance that Kenjaku failed to overcome for centuries. Kenjaku lost to Six Eyes users in the past, and even after killing a Six Eyes user and a star plasma vessel shortly after birth, fate still replaced them on the merger day. That's why he switched to sealing Gojo instead of trying to erase the Six Eyes directly. The moment Kenjaku tries to process the world through them, the feedback is monstrous. He sees too much. Every cursed energy thread, every technique trace, every flaw in his own brain, his mind can handle ancient sorcery, but the Six Eyes were never meant for a parasite wearing the face of their rightful owner. So his first return to the battlefield is terrifying but unstable. Sukuna sees Gojo again and grins, until he notices the wrong presence inside. Yuji freezes harder than anyone, because this is his teacher's body walking like a corpse puppet. Maki attacks first. Infinity stops her. Todo tries Boogie Woogie. Kenjaku reads the switch through the Six Eyes and adapts too fast. For 1 minute, everyone understands the nightmare. Then Kenjaku's control flickers. For the first time, Gojo's body resists him. Maybe it's muscle memory. Maybe it's the soul lingering the way Geto's body reacted in Shibuya. Maybe the Six Eyes themselves are rejecting the invader. His hand reaches for Yuji and Infinity drops for half a second. Yuji punches through the opening and lands directly on the soul boundary. Yuta, still alive but bleeding out, forces Rika forward for one final strike. Maki cuts through the skull before Kenjaku can stabilize. This theory ends fast, but it scars everyone. Kenjaku dies in Gojo's body. Yuta likely dies without using it, and Shoko has to destroy what remains of both her best friends. Sukuna still has to be beaten afterward, but the sorcerers fight him with their morale shattered. The body swap fails, yet Kenjaku still wins one last emotional wound. Now, that was the shortest path. In the second theory, Kenjaku successfully controls Gojo's body, but loses access to the merger. Kenjaku reaches the corpse and transfers perfectly. He gains Gojo's body, Limitless, the Six Eyes, and all the efficiency that comes with them. But there is a trade. Leaving Geto's body means leaving the technique that made his endgame possible, Curse Spirit Manipulation. Without Geto's technique, control over Tengen becomes unstable. The merger plan doesn't vanish, but it can no longer be executed cleanly. So Kenjaku makes a new decision. He stops chasing the murder immediately, and chooses survival through domination. He appears in front of Sukuna while Yuji and Todo are pressing the King of Curses. The battlefield goes silent. Sukuna recognizes him, then instantly understands what happened. Kenjaku is now wearing the body of the only man who nearly killed him. That makes Sukuna angry in a way he rarely shows. He doesn't care about Gojo's dignity, but he cares deeply about someone else turning that victory into a tool. The fight becomes 3-sided. Yuji wants Sukuna dead. Sukuna wants Kenjaku dead. Kenjaku wants both monsters broken enough to control the next era. This is where every character gets affected differently. Yuji is forced to fight beside Sukuna's movements without actually cooperating with him. Todo becomes the only reason Yuji survives, constantly swapping him away from blue and red. Maki becomes the assassin waiting outside Infinity's rhythm. Kusakabe and Miguel buy seconds by protecting the wounded. Hakari has to abandon Uraume faster because Kenjaku is a bigger emergency. Yuta is the biggest casualty. Since Kenjaku stole Gojo's body, Yuta never gets his 5-minute chance. If Shoko cannot save him, he dies before seeing the final result. If he survives as a witness to the worst theft in Jujutsu history. Kenjaku's Gojo body is absurd, but there are limits. He has the technique, the eyes, and the body, but he doesn't have Gojo's instincts. He can use infinity. He can fire blue and red. He can probably create purple with enough calculation, but Gojo's battle sense was built from birth. Kenjaku is piloting a god-tier weapon he understands intellectually, while Sukuna and Yuji attack emotionally, physically, and spiritually. The gap causes more cracks than even the genius calculated. Sukuna eventually lands a world-cutting slash when Kenjaku gets too confident. It doesn't kill him outright, but it damages the body enough to make infinity unstable. Yuji sees it instantly. He rushes in, lands a soul strike, and starts separating Kenjaku from the stolen body. Maki follows with a blade to the brain. Todo swaps Yuji out of the collapse. Kenjaku dies here, but not before ruining the endgame. Yuta is dead or crippled. Gojo's body is gone beyond repair. The merger is delayed, but fragments of Tengen scatter into the barrier system. Sukuna is weaker, but the students are too exhausted to win cleanly. Megumi's rescue becomes harder because Kenjaku's interruption gave Sukuna room to bury him deeper. The future after this is colder. The students still defeat Sukuna eventually, but the victory has no Gojo, no Yuta at full strength, and no clean answer for the corrupted barrier system Kenjaku leaves behind. But the third theory is the true ultimate evil, because in this version, Kenjaku steals Gojo's body and keeps the merger plan alive. This requires preparation, and Kenjaku is the one villain who would actually prepare it. Before his fight with Takaba and Yuta, he creates a failsafe, a cursed spirit bound to his brain, a stored fragment of Geto's technique, a binding vow that lets him carry one final command over Tengen even after leaving Geto's body. It doesn't have to be elegant. Kenjaku has spent 1,000 years doing ugly things for one beautiful experiment. So when he takes Gojo's body, he doesn't lose the merger, but becomes its gatekeeper. The first thing he does is avoid Sukuna. That's what makes this version smarter than Theory 2. He lets Yuji, Todo, Maki, and the others keep fighting. He lets Sukuna get weaker. He lets Yuta's absence create confusion. Then, when everyone is waiting for Gojo's body to return as their weapon, Kenjaku appears above the battlefield with the stitched forehead open. Yuji knows before anyone says it. That's not Gojo. The psychological damage here is insane. Yuji loses the symbol of hope in real time. Maki realizes their emergency plan has become the enemy's body. Todo tries to keep Yuji steady, but even he understands the rhythm has changed. Sukuna, exhausted and furious, looks at Kenjaku and realizes the old parasite has waited until the exact moment both sides are the weakest. Then Kenjaku opens unlimited void. This is where the entire battle becomes unfair. Gojo's domain was already one of the most lethal techniques in the series. Kenjaku's barrier skill is ancient, refined, and cruel. If he combines Gojo's domain with his own open barrier knowledge, even imperfectly, the battlefield becomes a death sentence. He doesn't need to hold it long. Half a second is enough to freeze most fighters. 1 second turns strategy into static. Sukuna survives because he is Sukuna. Yuji survives because of his soul resilience. Maki survives because her heavenly restriction makes the rules behave strangely around her. Everyone else is in danger immediately. Kenjaku then makes his real move. Rather than trying to kill Sukuna first, he tries to use him. A weakened Sukuna, a shaken Yuji, Megumi's submerged soul, Tengen's barrier remnants, and Gojo's body together create the impossible collision Kenjaku has wanted since the beginning. He starts forcing the merger forward through the chaos instead of waiting for perfect conditions. Japan's barrier system begins screaming. Colonies start collapsing into each other. Culling game players feel their cursed energy pulled upward like tides. Tengen's remains start blooming through the country. Ordinary people begin seeing curses everywhere. The sky above Shinjuku turns into a half-formed womb of cursed energy. And Kenjaku is smiling in Gojo's face. Now the heroes have to make the ugliest choice of the series. They cannot save Gojo's body. They cannot wait for Yuta. They cannot let Yuji focus only on Megumi. They have to kill the strongest body in history before the merger is born. Yuji becomes the center again. He attacks the soul connection between Kenjaku and the body. Maki attacks the physical brain. Todo protects the timing. Nobara, if she returns in this route, becomes the most important long-range piece because resonance against Gojo's remains could damage Kenjaku without touching infinity directly. Megumi fights from inside Sukuna at the same time, pushing back just enough to stop Kenjaku from using him as a stable anchor. Sukuna, in a cruel twist, helps. Not because he cares, though. It's simply because Kenjaku's world would leave no room for Sukuna to stand as the ultimate curse. For once, Sukuna and Yuji's goals overlap. Yuji hates it. Sukuna enjoys that. The final clash is ugly, crowded, and desperate. Maki loses an arm getting through a gap in infinity. Todo burns out Boogie Woogie completely. Nobara's resonance cracks the stitched forehead from a distance. Yuji lands the decisive soul strike and forces Kenjaku's brain to separate from Gojo's body for 1 second. Sukuna destroys the exposed brain. Then Yuji destroys Sukuna. That sounds like like victory, but Theory 3 never gives a clean one. The merger is stopped halfway, leaving Japan permanently changed. Curses become easier for civilians to perceive. Some colonies never fully disappear. The Gojo clan collapses because the Six Eyes were stolen and ruined. Yuta's future is uncertain. Megumi survives, but he wakes up in a world where his teacher's body was used as the final doorway to hell. The long-term implication is even darker. Kenjaku dies, but his experiment partially succeeds. The next generation grows up in a world where the boundary between sorcerers, curses, and ordinary humans is thinner than ever. And decades later, people still whisper about the Stitch Six Eyes, the day the ultimate evil wore Gojo Satoru's face and almost turned the entire country into one living curse. But that begs the question, what would happen if Gojo himself came back, but as a cursed spirit? Well, that's the subject of this other video. Click on this video to see what it would be like if Gojo was reincarnated as a curse. Go ahead, click it.